Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. Vishad's interview, the internet went at the perfect time, or the not so perfect time. So let's just get him back in, see what we can do. This is always the risk, unfortunately. But hopefully, we should be all good. Here we
God,
go.
gotta love a technical malfunction, don't you?
Mate, no, sorry. I just explained to everyone on the live. You know, as they probably know, this happens more times than not.
Indeed, indeed. But well, look, back on. So never mind, never mind. Hello to Tim. Hello to Julian. Nice to have you guys here. So anyone that's just joined on, again, just feel free to chip in with questions, ideas, thoughts as we go along. And we were just outlining before I got rudely interrupted by the net. Why wouldn't people go to a niche coach instead of a mindset coach? And we're making the point that niche coaches are great at what they do, but often what they talk about is something we go to in real depth, which is about the mindset work that underpins sort of like goal chasing. So it's not to say, look, we're better than the others, but it's more about, it's interesting that they too talk about mindset from a work point of view, because it would help embed their work. So for example, if you worked with the mindset coach and then said, look, at the end, you still want to go through the goal you started with, then that's where a niche coach who's got the specialist ways to help you will bring it in. To put this together in an analogy, right, you could think of it as, look, we mentioned life coaching before and the comparison to mindset. If you think of life coaching, it'd be like decorating your house with a wobbly foundation. So you might get away with it. You can do up, you know, your house with new paint, new pictures, all that kind of thing. But mindset coaching would be going in and repairing your foundations. So your house remains structured and firm. And then you can do all the decorating and stuff on top. Now, in terms of foundations, the foundations are obviously in the basement beneath your house. And to get there, there's a door in your house. But you're the only one that's got the key. I haven't got it as a coach. But you might not know you've got the key. So what we do is we help you look for the key, so that, and then tell you what to do when you go down into the foundations. But ultimately, it's your key and it's your foundation. So that's just a little analogy to I guess, put life coaching and mindset coaching distinctly.
Yeah, I mean, that was a beautiful analogy you just used there, mate, to be fair. Just going to address some of the comments quickly. Yeah, Juliana says, hey, Alex. Yeah, how you doing, Juliana? Tim says, love what you're doing. Oh, yeah, no, appreciate that, mate. And glad that all the content and everything is valuable for you. But yeah, picking up on your point, Bishad, I think it's just, it's true. And something that sort of flagged up for me there is on my coaching sessions, I get asked a lot, oh, have you got any tips on this? Or have you got any advice? Or can you just let me know how to do this? It's like, I actually do not know. I don't have tips and I don't have advice, right? Because at the end of the day, like you said about using the house as an example there, it's wrong for me to sort of sit there and say, and for yourself as well, to sit there and say, okay, this is the answer. This is what you need to do. Because one, it's an opinion. And two, we're not going to know necessarily more about somebody else's life than what they know. You know,
Exactly.
our job is to just work on the mindset, help you kind of change that mindset into a more empowering one. And so you can use it in a way that's going to impact your future in a better way, you know, because at the minute you kind of have two choices. You can either stay with how things are, stay stuck, or stay in a place where you're not sure about the next move, or you can make those little changes and change how you see the world, and not just change what you're going to do, but change who you are going to become, like change the person that you're going to be in the next moment, in the next goal that you've got set. And that's what I think what we're getting at, really, isn't it? That's what mindset is all about. So
Absolutely. You make a real good point there, that often you hear the question, what's the hack or tip or shortcut? In all honesty, there isn't one. The work is the shortcut. Now, you might find that as you do this kind of self-transformation work, that you might get results instantly, which is great, but it might not be the case where you realize change instantly, and it will take time and practice. And like with anything that's worth the work, you know, you could be like learning to play an instrument, or learning a new recipe. You might not get it right first time, but as you practice, as you learn each time you do things, how to improve things, etc., you eventually get better at whatever it is you're trying to change, until ultimately you get to a place where you want to. And that's the same with this work. So the reason I sometimes say a lot is that you have the answers, is that our subconscious knows what we want, but we rarely ask ourselves the question, what do we want? Now people go, well, isn't that just obvious? I just say, I want X, Y, Z. Well, coming back to your point about goals, at the very beginning you mentioned about, you know, chasing goals, right? Often we come from the perspective of, look, if I get that goal, that will make me happy. But we rarely go, right, wait, why do we want that in the first place? So it could be something obvious as, I want more money, or I want to change my career, or I want to find a partner. And then what happens when we try to work towards those goals explicitly, then we find our efforts fizzle out, or we don't, you know, get towards those objectives or goals, and we're thinking like, why didn't that happen? But often we forgot to ask ourselves, well, what do I want, and why do I want it? Do I want it because everybody else around me seems to be getting it, and therefore I don't want to be the only one left out? Or is it a sense of, somebody told me to get this goal, and therefore I'm working towards it? When we center the question and reasons into ourselves and go, look, I want this to better myself, or to meet my own needs, then our subconscious goes, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. Because at the moment, our subconscious is going, yeah, you say you want that thing, whatever it is, but I'm not convinced, because at the moment you're alive. I only care that you're alive and I meet your needs. Now, you might not like the way I meet your needs, so that's why we say, I don't like my job, or I want to change it, or I want to find a new partner. But until our subconscious goes, well, you need to convince me that making this change is going to meet those needs still. And that can only be done by asking questions, taking the practice. So when you ask for things like tips or hacks, that's our subconscious going, yeah, can we just like get rid of this so that we don't do anything? But realistically, when you put this practice and compassion in, it's transformative. It's what you mentioned, it's what I mentioned, that you then lead yourself to where you want to go, and that's very empowering.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And I think that's the whole point, because if somebody else had your answers,
Yeah,
then would your answers, you know, I think
exactly.
like that's the whole point here. And you put it really well. It's like, do I want what I want, or do I want what other people want, or what other people think I should want? You know? And I think that's, I've certainly been in my life before where I've thought, okay, well, the stereotype and society suggests that we should be chasing this, so I'm going to do that. But realistically, that's not in line with me. It's in line with someone else, fair enough, but not me. So, and that's the whole point, I guess, why we start coaching businesses. Like, not many other people we know do it. You know, I didn't know a single person who did this before, but it was more in line with me, more with my story, my background. You know, the work I've done in the past is completely in touch with what I want to do. So for someone else, it's absolutely not. They're probably into insurance or something like that. But you know, for me it is, and that's why we're going for it. And I think that the question, what do you want, is an underrated question. Like you said, it seems, but we don't get asked it enough, and we probably don't ask people enough. You know, because when we really boil it down, like, what do we want from life? What do we want tomorrow, next day? You know, and yeah, another thing you said, I think just the fact you're alive right now, that's where we're at right now. That's what matters, and it's what you want right now. It can change, absolutely. You know, growth happens, changes happen, but I think just the whole where we're at right now, that's all that really kind of matters. And what do we want in this moment? What do we want to pursue?
Well, exactly, nail on the head again. I mean, that question, as we keep going back to what do you want, is that powerful. And it also alludes to the fact that, as you said, as you do this work, you begin to answer your own questions, but also it also allows you to do things like changing your mind. Like we put our I guess post or ad out there about this session about breaking down labels and preconceptions. So we've talked about the idea of like niche coaching, and isn't mindset coaching just life coaching? Well, hopefully we're trying to show you that by breaking these down, by showing you what they actually mean, means that it links into the point of flexibility. Like often when you quote a goal, you say, right, I'm going to devote everything towards that. Okay, that's a noble attitude. That's cool. You're working on something that you say you want, and okay. But often you might hang your self-worth on it. So if for whatever reason you don't achieve it, then you go, oh, I'm not good enough. I can't achieve anything. But what also happens is if you happen to work on it and you change your mind for what could be legit reasons, then you still go, oh no, I'm indecisive. I can't make my mind up, and I'm just stuck in this maze again. What our work will show you that it's actually okay to change your mind, because everybody changes their mind. Now, that's not solely to say that just because everyone else does it, it's all right for you. But it's merely to show that often we think of our issues and challenges as our own. I'm the only one suffering with it. In all honesty, if you look at it from the other point of view, that we're probably the few people that are courageous enough to speak openly about it, because other people would be experiencing the same, yet we're articulating that, like, hang on, I need to either work on it or recognize where I am with it. So, you know, as I said, breaking down these labels and preconceptions just opens up that flexibility for you.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think, to be honest as well, you kind of hit the nail on the head there about people who are willing to kind of talk about it, but it is real. It is going on for all of us. And I think generally this stuff, even if it's just mindset, self-development, that sort of thing, I think people think there has to be something, there's still a bit of a stereotype, there has to be something wrong with you to take part in it,
Yeah,
or to be,
exactly.
you know, and it's the opposite. It's the complete opposite. It's like everyone has an area to work on. They always will. And that's that's what's so like interesting about it, because there's always something new to learn. There's some way to improve. So the fact that you're willing to actually engage in these conversations and actually bring something to the table is a skill. It's not a weakness in any way. So I think that's a stereotype that we kind of have at the moment in terms of coaching. I think specifically mindset coaching, because when you think mindset, you think like, you know, mental health, stuff like that. So you think there could be, oh, does that mean there's something wrong with me, when it's the
like 100%. I mean, that's probably one of the core messages from this session. I'd say that, like, you know, working on what's termed your mindset, I say, does not mean there's anything wrong with you, as there isn't, as you would work with any other coach. Like, there's always the sense that we go in, well, ultimately that's partly of what I do about recognizing that low self-worth, because we feel that, like, okay, if I need help with something, then I might come from a place of I'm not good enough, because I work on the premise that wherever you start from, so let's say, as I said, these common goals that we have, right? So career, weight, relationship, self-esteem, addictions, depression, will all come from a sense of, it's, you know, we're not good enough. And, you know, the work I do will show you that wherever you start from, that it all comes back to it, because we've picked up those experiences from the very beginning, from our childhood. Now, just to make a distinction at this point, when we say find those programming experiences for your childhood, this is not going down the sort of therapy or counselling route. Because again, those labels of, like, I'm seeing a counsellor or I'm seeing a therapist, makes, again, you think, well, is there something wrong with me? Am I crazy? Or those kind of things. Again, no, because, you know, look, whichever person you pick, whether it's a coach or a therapist or counsellor or psychiatrist, whoever you see, ultimately it's about the rapport and trust you build with each other to allow yourself to process what you need to. Now, there are some that like therapy, like counseling, etc. My focus on when things happened, where they happened, and it's more the professional in question takes the lead. So a therapist would go, okay, it's this, right? And sort of label themselves as the therapist in this interaction. But what we as coaches do, so look, we're not going to say we're a therapist. We're not going to say we're your you know, mentor or whatever label. We're merely saying that, like, look, without us giving you the answers, we will work together and find your own answers. And that's something I wanted to just put in, as the fact that coaching will involve some idea of where things started from, because in order to improve, you need the starting point. And the starting point is, right, here's where you're at. Because obviously that's what the starting point is. But it's about, saying, right, you're here because, you might look at this goal and say, I want that. Well, it's because it's down to you feeling not good enough. So when we work on that, that's when, things like your mindset, your subconscious, all of it works together to allow you to then perform the changes that you want.
Yeah, I think you put that so well, and I'm glad you have, really, because it makes so much sense, and I think it really does clear the air on that. I think, in fact, I literally had a coaching session yesterday with a client, and it was a case of, okay, they had this goal that they wanted to achieve with finances, and it was kind of like, okay, but the underlying issue, or not issue, we don't like to use the word issue, but challenge,
Yeah.
is confidence. Confidence to go out and do it.
Uh,
And I think that's kind of what you're saying, really. Is like we have a goal in mind. The goal is to achieve something. You use some examples: going to the gym, in your business, relationships, whatever it is. But there are little things in terms of mindset that will stand in your way. That there's going to be bad days. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be those days. If you want to go to the gym and get in shape, there's going to be those days where you wake up and you don't feel like doing it and you don't want to do it. Whether something's happened the night before, something's happening on that day, it's gonna happen. And I think that's what mindset coaching is all about. Is recognizing those areas ahead of time, what's going to come up, looking at the roadmap, seeing the challenges that are going to be in the way, and trying to deal with that head on in the beginning, and try and like figure out a way to come through it all and towards that goal. And I think that's acceptance is a massive part of mindset. And it's going to sound very blunt, but you learn very early when you get into mindset that bullshit just does not help you. I mean, the amount of times I think you see people try and bullshit others or bullshit themselves in terms of what could happen, or, sometimes we just got to face the facts that there are going to be bad days. There are going to be challenges, and there's going to be things that we've not before, and we're going to, if we want to get there, we're going to have to overcome them. And that's where we come in. We don't come in to bullshit people. We come in to help with those areas and work on them with people.
Exactly right. And the no bullshit element is tough for people to take, and that's probably one of the core reasons why at the moment you'd say probably not a lot of people undertake this kind of work, because it's too hard.
Mm-hmm.
You make the point that you have the answers, but they're in the dark places that you've created and probably don't want to go back to. Now again, it sounds a bit kind of doom laden or tough, but that's what it can be. We're not trying to make it tough on purpose, because a lot of this work is simple but not easy. Because what we walk through with you is that there are very simple concepts and ideas that we've perhaps overlooked or probably not engaged with, but they're not difficult in concept. There's not some magical tweak of the brain or terminology you've not heard before. Now there are those coaches that will take it to that level. I've seen coaches where they'll take a simple psychological response, so things like limiting beliefs or negative emotions, something that you can readily understand and go, okay, I know. But then they take it to things like the quantum mechanical level, talking about spirit and energy fields and all that kind of thing. So that's a bit more, I guess, advanced, if you will. Again, another point of this work is you don't have to take everything that we say. This work is tailoring it to your needs. You might listen to something that I say and go, no, that's rubbish. And you might hear someone else say something, oh, I get that. But I also took a bit of what I said. So this is literally like a pick and mix. You pick whatever suits you. You don't have to take the whole lot. And that's something, again, I should break, that would break a preconception that, life coaching is like, I'll get all the answers enough to do everything they say. No, literally no, because the term itself says life coaching. And again, I don't want to pick on life coaching as a label, but it's just, again, to break that sense of it's not really linked to mindset coaching, but ultimately it comes from what do you want? You can choose to believe whatever. I literally made a post this morning about, often in our field, we see people portray themselves as, well, I'll use the term here, knobheads. They think they're uber enlightened. They think they know everything, and therefore want to broadcast to everybody that you're doing it wrong. Do it my way. I've seen coaches do that. I said, look, what you believe in is crap. What you should do what I do, and if you do what you're doing at the moment, you're, you know, stupid, naive, brain dead, whatever you want to say. I come from the perspective of, you know, believe what you want to. I saw a great quote from Keanu Reeves saying, look, if someone believes 1+1 is 5, good luck to them. I'm not going to stand there and convince them and say that they're stupid or whatever. And that's how I feel it. Where, like, you know, your mindset is your mindset at the end of the day. You choose to work on it however much you want. But what we're saying is we're come from the place of doing it in that sort of manner of being compassionate and being kind to yourself while you make mistakes. Embedding these new behaviors will really benefit so many rewards for you.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's something really interesting as well, because there is this idea, and I've certainly had it, I still have it now, where you feel like you've got to be perfect at everything all of the time, you know, even to get going with something.
Yeah.
And realistically, you're never going to be perfect none of the time. So perfection is an illusion. It's just progress. It's all progress. That's all it is. And like you said, you kind of said the other stream got cut down. It was something that was really well put. You're not going to be good at something straight away. It's just you're unfamiliar with it, but it's the knowledge of knowing that there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely fine, and it's perfectly normal for everyone. It doesn't make you any less because of that. And I think that's something that coaching allows people to do, is to try and, you know, ditch the whole, look, I've got to be perfect, because especially mindset coaching, because perfection is that illusion. And I think that's what I've kind of, since I started coaching, that concept in general is something that I've really sort of hung on to. The imperfect actions, they say, take an action anyway, even though you don't fully know what you're doing yet. It's like this live today. Like, it's my first ever Instagram live. We messaged each other before saying, how the hell do we start this thing? You know?
Yeah. Do you know what? Even in that example, I thought, actually, yeah, as because obviously on the ad in that we put your tag down as like, this is where it will be for people to join. And I thought, yeah, hang on, does he know it? And then say with 5 minutes to go, we like, you know, how does this actually get done? I mean, I just remember going, I've done it once before. I was like, wait, where do we go? So I found that YouTube video and we sent it. But I just, even in the middle, when I cut out for a second, I could be like, oh, bloody hell, should we reorganize it for another day? I'm annoyed. Everyone's going to leave. But it's like, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, we're everything. You know, ultimately, if you come from the place of, look, we're all flawed humans. As you said yourself, and there's nothing, again, another label to break down, perfectionism. We all think that being perfect is something to aspire for. You've heard of like people saying, I'm a perfectionist, and that's meant to be good. Okay, it's again nice thing to strive for high standards and things like that, but if you look at what perfectionism is actually trying to get at, there could be a sense that, look, are you trying to be a perfectionist to avoid looking stupid? So your subconscious goes, right, if there's a new goal or challenge or whatever to go for, you might assess it and go, look, if you don't do this properly, there's a risk you might look stupid or imperfect. So do you know what? I'm not going to do that, because it will know that, like, you have the inherent fear of looking silly. That's come from your past. So you're like, as soon as when you first experienced that, saying that you looked a little bit foolish after a mistake, then you're like, right, I'm never going to let that happen again. I didn't like how I felt. Let's put that emotion away and let's stick to doing things I'm going to be absolutely perfect at. So not only does your subconscious in one hand stops you from looking stupid, but it also stops you from taking chances. Now, by not taking chances, you could be missing out on whichever, because to not take a chance, sometimes in what we want in life, you have to take a little bit of a chance. There's not many things that are risk-free. There's a lot that is, yes, but if you want to move forward, then there's a little bit of a risk. But here, this is where perfectionism goes, well, no, you don't want to do that, because otherwise we're not going to be able to make it look perfect. But what we have to do, we don't have to have a go at ourselves for saying, oh, you know, I have to be perfect. We can just say, okay, I can accept. I look at it from the framework of a character. That's your perfectionist character on the microphone saying, I'll take care of this. You know, you don't want to look stupid, fine, let's do everything perfectly. But when you can go to the character, look, cheers for what you've done through the years. I'm not trying to get rid of you, I'm not trying to kill you, but now I'm going to do things a different way. I'm going to start to take more risk and be okay with making mistakes. I might look foolish, but that's okay. Just even saying that thing just raises your score on your self-worth power bar a little bit higher. That's all that it is. Just that constant practice, and then you'll just see how much of a change that can have for you. These simple little things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think the reward you feel when you actually go and do that, when you actually take that risk as well, is incredible every time. You never
Yeah.
we that fear of, okay, I'm going to regret this when I get it so badly wrong, and it's inevitable because I've never done it before. And but realistically, that's not a common feeling that we're going to get from that. We're gonna be like, okay, you know what? I didn't really know what I was doing there, but I gave it a go, you know, and I tried, which is not to comparing to other people is a good thing to do.
Exactly.
Sometimes we think, okay, at least if anyone says anything, at least I had a go, you know, and you can walk away with that. And I think I saw a quote the other day, and I don't want to misquote anyone, but I think it said something like, if you think the bill for risk is expensive, wait until you see the bill for regret. And
I've seen that. I've seen it somewhere like that, but it's a
yeah,
great quote. It's a really great quote.
yeah, and I think about it, like, it's so true. Like, I mean, the thing is with regret is it's gone. Whatever you wanted to do, the reason why you're regretting it is because you can't now change anything about it, or you're not in a position where you need to change anything about it. So I think that is the choice we have, and I think that's like the brutal side of mindset, because we know there's that debate. Okay, are we going to go for it now? Are we going to put ourselves out of our comfort zone and do this thing because we know it can open doors for us? We know that there's going to be, there's going to be a lot of learning involved, but it's going to move us to that next level. Or we could just sit on it and do what makes us feel comfortable for a little bit longer, and then a little bit longer until we just built it up and it's stewed for far too long. And now it's this massive inflamed problem in our life. And all of a sudden 8 years have gone by and we still haven't done it. And I think that's something that I guess I used to kind of be like that. And that's why I kind of help people from a fulfillment point of view, because I would always be like, okay, there's going to be a lot of things to happen in life, but hopefully it just goes all right, and then you get to a point and you face in it, and then adversity comes into your life and you're kind of like, you're drowning, but you don't know what to do. And there's a certain amount of suffering that goes on, and then it's either the sink or swim. And then that is up to you. And that's where the risk decision isn't in your hands anymore. It's the one you have to take. And I'm glad in my life that came to me when it did. But it's something that a lot of people juggle, and they're still juggling now. And I guess we all are in a way. There's always things in our lives that we could do that we haven't done before, that we know will help us with self-improvement, that will take us to that next level. And yeah, I just think that's the brutal side of mindset. But at the same time, it's one of the best parts of mindset, because when you actually carry it out and you actually go for it, the rewards are just endless.
Perfectly put. I mean, you're right. That those moments will come at you out of the blue in your life when you least expect it. You mentioned for years we've gone through certain ways to do things. That's essentially our subconscious driving the want to meet our needs through our cast of characters that we created. So the reason we carry on suboptimal patterns, behaviors, is because it's safe. As you said, it's a comfort zone. We're meeting our needs in unhealthy ways, but there are ways for us to unlock the healthier needs. We just haven't realized those ways yet. And before we go on, just saying hello to a couple of joiners recently. Hello to James, hello to Gunning for Glory, and Nida, is it? Sorry if I've mispronounced that. Again, guys, feel free to chip in with comments, questions, whatever you'd like to this conversation. And yeah, brilliant. Coming back to your quote about, wait to see the bill of regret. That's a brilliant quote to just mention the idea that, look, we don't have all the time in the world to do this, but we mentioned that, there is sometimes a brutal and stark truth to what we do. You mentioned the brutal side of mindset coaching. I mentioned things like the dark side and our shadows, where our answers are. But again, this is not to frighten anybody. This is not to get you to submit and go, oh God, I have to do this. I literally did a post this morning saying, you will do the work when you feel the time is right for you. It's not to say you drag your feet forever, but it's to say, if you don't feel that you want to do this for fear of what you might find or that it might be hard, that's okay. Again, in our coaching space, we're often seeing people that a limited time offer, and if you don't do this then, and you don't do that, you're going to miss out, and create that sort of desperation, if you will. We're here to say, look, it's okay, because it's not easy. But if you do want to be courageous and the want to do the work, that's what, you know, the likes of Alex and I are here for. We're not going to say we're giving you all the answers, by the way. There is an element of, look, I look at it as like, look, in a plane where I'm the co-pilot, you're the main pilot with the captain's hat and the I don't know, is it a wheel on a plane? Whatever. You know, we're there beside you and we'll help you, but you're the one that's got the, you know, the main route and where we're going, that kind of thing. And, you know, that's the relationship we have in that coaching partnership. And just something I'd add into the mix as well, right, about regret and working. What drives us to these things at the moment, I feel, is the concept of emotions. Like, at the moment, we've got an idea that, again, a bit of preconception or label breaking. We've got the idea of positive and negative emotions. That if I feel these emotions, like, you know, grief, anger, sadness, embarrassment, jealousy, that's bad, I shouldn't put that away. You got positive emotions like joy, laughter, happiness, excitedness, that you should feel all of them. Now, we never analyze, like, why am I happy? When you're happy, you're like, great, I just enjoy it. But when you're experiencing a negative emotion, it's like, why am I feeling like this? Nobody else is like that. Funny enough, people may have seen, I've quoted it on our ad, that we're two Redmen, we're two Liverpool supporters. Now, funny enough, I heard a quote yesterday from our manager, Jurgen Klopp, who mentioned that, like, you know, that for those of you who don't know, you know, he had to go a bit yesterday at the fourth referee and pulled his hamstring as well, but that was a bit of a funny moment. But what he said in the conference afterwards was that in the moment, yeah, it was unacceptable for me to show my emotions, because he recognized that, you know, he was a role model. But he then said that, yes, I'm a role model, but we're also human beings first. So I found that very striking, in that he's recognizing that as humans, we feel emotions naturally, and we feel that, like, okay, there's certain ones I shouldn't display, but sometimes we just either burst out because we've been holding things in for too long. And one of the things that, you know, I certainly work on in my space is that before we get to any of the change work, we talk about, well, where are we with things like our definition of emotions? How do we treat them? And one message I want to say to people is emotions are technically neutral. We're the ones that label positive or negative. So one thing we can learn straight away is that whatever we feel is okay. Now, it's not to say we go to the other extreme and just display every emotion unabandoned all the time, because that makes you look a bit overbearing. And again, we're not relying on what other people are saying, but it's striking that balance basis by expressing and accepting your emotions so that you don't trap it. So yeah, look, I echo what you said about regret, that if you don't open yourself up to these things, then you know, you have the answers in you, but you just need to give yourself that little bit of an opportunity to go find them.
Yeah, and a couple of points there, mate, I'd just love to pick up on. I think emotions in general is it's just such an interesting topic. And I think what I kind of would say to anyone who, I don't know, wants to sort of know more about our emotions is that they are, like you said, they're totally fine. You know, I mean, we feel these emotions, like you said, you alluded to it there, you talked about happiness. We don't spend a lot of time thinking, oh, why are we happy? You know, when we're sad, we think, oh, why am I sad? What's happened? You know, all these questions. We try and eliminate whatever the challenge is. But at the end of the day, the emotion is the thing that can't be bought. You know, that's something that we're going to feel in our lifetimes. And with the fact we're feeling all of them is a great thing, because that's a whole part of being alive.
Exactly.
But it's not so much about trying to eliminate the emotion and say, look, I'm going to swap my sadness into happiness because that's a better emotion to feel. You know,
Brilliant. Love it.
Into something more positive, because it's not going to work like that. That's just not how it works.
Exactly.
It's allowing your emotions to be what they are, and it's how you respond to them. That's the thing. That's what the difference is. And we talked a bit about earlier, days where you're going to wake up, if you want to get in shape, you want to go to the gym, you're not going to feel like it. You're going to feel sad some days. But how you respond to that is where the difference is. And if you respond to it every time and, okay, I'm not going to do it because of this, then that's what's going to keep you on that starting line. We talked about the and everything. I think that's what's going to keep you stuck. But if you say, look, okay, I don't feel like it today, but I'm going to go and do it anyway because I said I was going to do it and it's what I was supposed to do. And then you go and do it, and then you just see the reward that comes after that when you actually put yourself in to do something that you did not feel like doing today, and you went to sleep last night and you woke up in the morning thinking to yourself, I don't want to do it, but you did it. Those are what come in, and it's not about, like I said before, it's not about changing the emotion that you feel before it. It's about responding to it in a way that is beneficial to you. And you said yourself, sometimes that is just taking a pause, and sometimes that is maybe just not moving into the brutal side of it too quickly, because there's other great sides to it as well. And I think sometimes it's just doing what's going to be right for you in the long term, moving forward, and also in the immediate. So it's an interesting one once you get your head around it, because emotions are tricky. And you talked about Jurgen Klopp yesterday. I can think of like loads of other examples in sport. Sorry to those who aren't into sport at all, but there's plenty. It's high pressure situations, and emotions are really prevalent because people are watching you. Things are happening. Everything matters in these moments, and emotions are going to be really high. So sometimes it's okay to feel those emotions. It's the human side, like you said. It's someone who is expressing themselves honestly in the moment, but also how you respond to those is your choice. You can react or you can pause and respond to them. And I think that's the difference there, Vishad. What would you say to that?
There's so much value in what you just said. I think someone should need to clip those last 2 minutes and put them out there, honestly, because where do I start? The very idea that whatever you feel is okay, and also it's not necessarily about the emotion, it's what you feel about the emotion. So you brought back the example of sometimes you wake up and you don't want to go to the gym and you can't be asked and this kind of thing, but then you end up doing it. Now, it's not to say that you have that daily fight with your emotion and overriding, because that perpetuates actually what you might call a self-hate cycle. Not in that instance, but it's things like where during New Year's Eve, for example, the most common resolution is to get fit that people make. And then they start January by going, right, I'll sign up to a gym, I'll go on this diet, I'll stop alcohol, I'll stop chocolate, I'll stop crisps, whatever. It works for like a couple of weeks in January. Then they maybe go once or twice to the gym instead of like every few days, and then it just fizzles out. And then we go, oh, I can't stick to anything. And then you have a go at yourself going, oh, I shouldn't feel like this. I should, reinvigorate my efforts. So you're having a go at yourself, having a go at yourself, having a go at yourself. So you perpetuate that cycle. When we can just go, do you know what? Today, I might not be asked to go to the gym. That's okay. That's a natural feeling. Because if you think back to what we're talking about, natural emotions, we're going back to when we were kids. You look at kids nowadays, they will say and feel and show you what they feel without any inhibition. They don't care who's around them, not going to care what it looks like. They will display whatever emotion they are feeling explicitly. We as adults don't do that. We feel angry or sad or the misunderstood emotions. We're like, right, I better not say this out loud. Hold it in, until one day you can't hold it in and it bursts out. And what we're trying to get at is when we can accept what we feel without saying, I'm like this all the time, then it comes back to what you said, that, sometimes we feel these things and that's okay. We're not going to have, it comes back to the whole point about perfectionism. We're not going to do this perfectly all the time. And once we again, comes back to the idea of practice. This sounds good enough, like it sounds good in our heads. And we're thinking, okay, I want to see this happen straight away. It sounds good, and it does take that time, because our old behaviors have been in there for years. They're not going to be suddenly displaced like that straight away. But when our subconscious sees what we're trying to do, the results will actually come along without even you noticing, until you catch yourself going, oh, I didn't go through with that behavior this time. I did something else that, made you feel better about yourself, more healthier. Okay, a very brief example from my time as a coaching client. I worked with my coach on the idea of when someone sees you on an email and doesn't tell you what they want you to do. That annoyed me at work, because now it's like, right, I've got to read the email. What do you want? Is it something you want me to do? Because all they've done is like, CC Vishad, thanks. And that to me is like, you lazy get. Why don't you like say what you want? I'm going to delete this email. No, I have to now take time out of my day to read this email. And, you know, so my coach asked, okay, what feelings or emotions does that bring up? Well, annoyance, stress, because now I've got to take time out of my day. It could be a long ass thing. And also the stress of like, if I didn't say anything, am I going to get the blame for if something went wrong? Because like, well, you didn't pick up this issue at this point. So he said, okay, what else does that have? He said, I said, no, the other person's a lazy get. He doesn't say what they want, or she doesn't say what they want. And they said, consider this. Are you only thinking that they're lazy because you want to be also lazy like them, but you don't want to because you've got other ideas? So he's basically saying you reflect what you project. Now, again, that's an idea that's difficult to practice, that the idea that nobody makes you feel what you feel. It's all internal. You reflect what you project. So to round off the long story, he said, instead of getting annoyed and either deleting the email or whatever, if you just reply to them saying, look, it's not quite clear what you want me to do on this email. Going forward, if this happens, I'll probably just delete the email. Let me know if any issues. Now people go, oh, you can't do that. That looks unprofessional. That looks terrible. Like, yeah, but like with anything, it's a risk, is what we were saying before. But this is us saying what we want and asserting our boundaries. Now, look, there's then people we can speak to, like our manager or whomever. So again, it's just a roundabout way of bringing an everyday example of what we're talking about. These new behaviors are a bit of a risk, if you will. There's a bit of practice involved, but ultimately you get to a healthier place instead of just going, oh, this is only the only way it is, and I'm just resigned to this. And whatever it might, whatever field of life you're talking about. So all interlinked, as you said at the very beginning, back to mindset.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's something that you said there that I think is so important to draw on. You talked about how we project, you know, what it's actually what we're feeling inside rather than what someone else is kind of making us feel. And I
Yep.
can get head around. I've had discussions with people before where they've said, oh no, I don't agree with that at all. That's not fair. You know, this person was horrible. They're a dickhead. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, maybe, yeah, they probably were a dickhead. But at the same time, what can you do about that situation? Because
Exactly.
can change from their point of view. And someone once said to me back when I was recovering from my chronic pain experience for about a year and a half, they said to me about just taking responsibility for everything. And
Perfect.
I'd never
Love it.
thought of that because it's kind of your first thought is, but maybe I'm not responsible for everything. Maybe, you know, it's not my fault. But at the same time, you cannot control what other people say, whether they respond to you, whether they're nice to you, whether they're horrible to you, whether they respect you or not. I mean, there's obviously a way you can present yourself, and that's obviously what comes into it with what we do with coaching people. There's something that can really help, but overall, people are going to feel what they feel, and you're going to feel what you feel. So if you're around a dickhead, then you can look at yourself and say, look, do I really want to be around people like this? You know, what kind of people am I actually going to thrive with and
Yeah.
benefit in my life? How am I going to grow? How am I going to improve in business? How am I going to be happy and more sociable? You know, is it going to be around people who, you know, make me feel like this? Absolutely not. And that's where you can take that responsibility. You know, if you can look at the types of people you're around and how you kind of react in the situations when they do piss you off, because you can't look at the other side. You can't look at their angle. You know, it's irrelevant. It really is. And you shouldn't be bothered about it, I don't think. I know that's kind of like telling you something there, but when you're more bothered about it, that's when it festers in your head. That's when you stay up at night until 3 a.m. thinking about it. You know, so if you can get to a place where you're taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life, not in a way to make it your fault, but in a way that's going to benefit you moving forward, where you can learn, then that's a powerful place to be in. And I was really glad to get that advice when I did. So if I've managed to help someone else out with that today, then all the better.
I'm sure you have. Again, someone needs to clip the last 90 seconds and put it out there, because again, it's a really well made point that you've articulated about taking that responsibility, that radical responsibility, that you don't take it when it's just convenient for you. That's the fallacies people go for. Like, okay, I'm responsible for what I do, but then they still go, yeah, but then other people did X, Y, Z. And this is where the practice comes in. It's difficult for your mind to go, bloody hell, it can't just be me all the time. But here's the thing, we're not saying it's your fault, or that you take the responsibility of others and basically become a doormat. That's not what we're saying. It's, as you said, as much as we'd like to, we are not responsible for what other people say, do, think, or behave. And that's everybody. Children, bosses, partners, colleagues, friends. We all want them to think and do as we do, because that's an expected outcome. That's what we want. But when it's the other person that's responsible for how they think, say, do, and behave, we can't influence it. And that sometimes is to our detriment. You know, say things like, an ordinary example is, you want to catch up with a friend. Like, you know, there's a lot spoken about, especially, you know, in the mental health space at the moment, about reaching out to people just to check they're okay, things like that. You know, really nice sort of sentiments, and something we should all try and do. But ultimately, whether that person replies is up to them. Now, we sometimes get stuck with the whole, I reached out and they didn't reply. Now, you know, that could be a friend or a partner or a date or whomever. And then suddenly we go, oh, you know, they don't care. And, you know, I've messaged them loads of times, and we start in that cycle. Really, you're just not going to know. And when you start to practice that by going, right, do you know what? I reached out. Okay, if they didn't reply, that's okay. That doesn't mean you go, right, that's it, I'm never going to message anybody again. Again, that's going to another extreme. We want that, just that balance going, okay, I can reach out, they didn't reply, it's okay. And the self-worth you give yourself by just doing that is so good. And again, it's not something tangible, but you feel that real reward. It's not like you're getting a gold medal for it or anything, you know, like a trophy. It's literally you going, do you know what? I'm literally living life on a lot of my terms. You know, that doesn't mean like you go after everything in life, you know, and conquer everything. But it just gives yourself the means to go, okay, I can craft the path that I want to. And if there's a change of direction, that's fine. But I'm now coming from a place of higher self-worth, so that I'm not dependent on what they said or what she did, or what he did or they said. Because that's what we might be stuck in at the moment. And that's why we go after things. Oh, I'm getting it because it looks good. I'm getting it because I want to lose weight because my partner said, look, I'm looking a bit podgy. I can't lose weight because my partner likes to eat out too much. It's all about external. But when you switch to internal, take that responsibility, which is hard. Again, that's it. So the words take responsibility for yourself are simple to understand. We're not using some weird term or anything like that. But if it was easy, then everybody would do it. That's the point. Just compassion. You'll make mistakes, but that's okay. But the rewards are so up to you, it's untrue.
I think that's brilliant what you just said there, mate. And you're so right. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But I think the fact of the matter is, the fact is it's not easy. And if you can do it, that sets you apart from the rest. You know, if you can truthfully do that, you can spot other people doing it, and you probably will get sucked into conversations where, oh, you know, this person's horrible to me, they said this, it really pissed me off, you know what I mean? But you see that from a point of, you know what, like, that's just not helping this person, you know, rather than getting sucked into it fully and being like, yeah, they're a dickhead. Do you know what I mean? So it's a nice place to be in a sense, because you can see where other people are struggling based off their interactions with others. And of course you want to help them, but it's, you understand the process now. You understand how to kind of take that responsibility and look at things from your point of view. Whereas the majority of other people you will talk to will probably not be like that, you know? And I think that's where you can see the growth. That's where you can see how far you know, you can think back to a time in your life where I was like that. I was probably worried too much about what this person thought or what they said to me. And now I'm just not bothered, you know? And that's where the reward of doing something really difficult, like you just said, it is a difficult thing to do, but that's where the reward comes in, because nothing that's ever easy was worth it, if you know what I mean. You know, there's no
Exactly.
things. There's all the value in the difficult things. And that's I guess, the positive to actually trying to take that responsibility.
Absolutely. And, you know, I wrote something earlier about the bat signal. Like, it's very tempting when we do the work that, like, we want to tell everybody about it because we want to share and show that, you know, this can happen for you as well. But in all honesty, it's like what we said before, that people will do this work when they feel they're ready for it. Now, that might be ages to come. That might be, you know, they are ready. They just need that nudge. But the way I use the bat signal analogy is saying, well, Commissioner Gordon only switches on the bat signal when he needs Batman for something. So if we take the idea that when people switch on their own bat signal, that's when we should look to help. If they don't reach out or talk about things, and that's okay. But if we come across as like trying to give them advice, this is why we're trying to be like a white knight, trying to save people when they don't really ask or need saving. That's that balance again that we have about, you know, not just trying to say that we're the ones with the answers. Now, obviously, as mindset coaches, we want to tell people that these are the possibilities. You know, this is what is possible by working with us and employing these changes and how we view things. But you know, it's as you mentioned that you know, mistakes will be made. We don't need to be perfect, and you coming from the perspective of I want to change for myself, and you know, and it might take, you know, difficult decisions. You mentioned that, like, you know, you might be around a knobhead, but you're like, well, do I need to be around these kind of people, if you will? As much as a difficult a choice as it might be, if you can vocalize saying, well, do you know what, I don't think I can, you know, like that they don't bring a lot out in me in a good way, then that's a choice to make. But you know, it's just you saying what you want, reaffirming your own boundaries and path forward. And again, just takes that practice. You know, so it does sound like I've repeated that point a lot, but again, there's nothing more complex than that. It's the practice of perhaps some unconventional, counterintuitive moments and points, but that's where your answers are. That, like, you mentioned something before about, you know, flipping emotions. That's a really great point about, you know, don't feel this emotion, feel this one instead. That you could label as toxic positivity. There's a lot of people that come in our space saying, you know, you're a warrior, you're a goddess, you're a lioness, you've got this. And yeah, again, all well-meaning phrases to, you know, build your self-talk and this kind of thing, which is all great. But if just doing that, you lose out on the point about your darker side, because that's where your answers are. It's all well and good being positive. Everybody wants to be positive. It sounds good, but that's why sometimes it's not believable. Like, you know, you might get, you've heard the piece of advice of stand in front of a mirror and say that you love yourself and repeat that. It's like, yeah, but in that mirror, you've got your shadow waving at you going, hello, I'm part of you, but you don't like me. You hate me. You put me away. So how can you love yourself? So a lot of this work is about accepting and integrating your shadow. And then you can look in front of the mirror and go, yeah, I love myself. Even those parts of myself I might not like, I understand why they're there. And that's when you can really approach yourself with true self-worth. And then things like talking positively would accentuate the help. Whereas at the moment, is it a sense of kidology that you're giving yourself? So again, counterintuitive as that sounds, like, isn't positivity a good thing? It is, but you need that little bit of context to unfold it further.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. I think that comes back to our point on the bullshit, doesn't it? You know, I think it's good to draw on what's possible from your situation. You know, what is possible to come from it. But it's so important as well to not neglect those areas of your life that you don't want to think about, that you don't want to talk to, that you don't want to reflect on, because that's what the answers are. And I think that's the key to with all of this, isn't it? There's so many people out there who say focus on all of your strengths, you know, and just go with that. But one day those weaknesses are going to get tested, and that, you know, that
without you knowing it.
Exactly. It's totally unimaginable to you. And I'm not saying that you need to get yourself in a position where you can deal with all areas, because it's, you know, it's not going to happen. But don't forget about that version of you that is, you know, has its struggles, or has had, you know. And I think an example for myself, I talked about my chronic pain recovery earlier, but that was something I had to do. You know, for so long, I sort of made jokes about it with my friends, and I'd reflect on it as if it was a tragic event, if that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But what I basically had to do is I had to start respecting that version of me. If I was to ever really come through it, I had to respect that side to me, that I did. It was okay to be like that for the time being, because it propelled me to a new level. You know, it's not a regret. It's a part of my life that I should say, look, that was me at one point. And you know, all of the versions of me are all there. They're all valid and they're all logical. You know, and they've led me to be here where I am. So I think that's an example of it. And I think that a lot of people will try and avoid when they help others. They'll try and say, look, just try and forget all about that side to you. But really, there's some demons there, and it's not to say that it's difficult to confront them, but by actually doing it, you're going to open up so many doors for yourself.
Yep. I mean, that analogy of saying that there's different versions of you, exactly right. And the thing is, we made those versions. I call them characters in the work I do. They're characters we created, but we didn't create them for the sake of it. They're there for a need. This is the distinction we're making. We might not like those parts. We go, I hate it when I'm like that, or I don't like that version of me. But they're there for a reason, and they're fulfilling a need for us that other characters in our cast don't do. And that's a distinction. At the moment, we don't know what they're doing. So when we go through what they're actually, and you said, you know, there's demons in there, and it's not easy to confront them. Absolutely right. This is perhaps the brutal or dark side we talk about. It's not just a load of fluff and positivity. It does get dark. We're not trying to make it purposefully dark to, you know, naysay the positive people. But it's like, again, if you want to reach that self-worth, the answers are in there. And the reason that people aren't accessing them is because they don't want to. It's too hard, which is fine. But this is the way out, or the opportunity we're talking about of when you look there, then you ask yourself gently ask yourself these questions of what needs are they fulfilling? How can I fulfill the needs in healthier ways? And as you said, those difficult times and moments we've been through, like you mentioned your pain journey, I'm sure you'll have loads of answers of yourself that came out in that period. And it's literally trying to apply that to pretty much every character in our life. And the important thing is that cast that I talk about, those characters you mentioned, they're ever evolving. Every day we live, we might revisit a new character. We might make a new character that we've never experienced before. We might have a character we forgot about that's come back. It's ever evolving. So this is almost the I guess the excitement of the work that we do, that like, it's not like, right, do the work once, done, next. It's like, it'll be constantly evolving. And that's why mindset coaching gives you those tools that are evolving, that you craft and use as you go along. It's not a one-stop shop and that's it. Not a one-off thing. This is the beauty of it, that it's an evolving, live, personalized thing. Because your character's your own. Your cast is different to someone else's. And that's the beauty of it. It's not right, here's a template, off you go. This is all tailored to you.
Absolutely, mate. That was beautifully put. And I think that's the idea, isn't it? You're not the same person as you were yesterday, and tomorrow you're the person as you are today. But that's scary. That doesn't have to be a scary thing. That doesn't have to be like, okay, you know, I kind of just want to be me and that's okay, because change is inevitable when we think about growth and new experiences. You know, which needs to happen realistically, but it doesn't have to be a negative thing. You know, and I think that's the whole idea of the idea that you have to have done certain things by this point in your life. And
exactly.
It's kind of like, I mean, I heard Joe Rogan say one time, it's like, just ditch that idea, because, you know, you're not the same person as you were last week, last year. You're not going to be the same person as you are now in next week, next month, next year, in 5 years. So realistically, values are going to change, but just don't stop living in the moment, because that's when things do stand still. And I think that's a really crucial point there, is that, you know, it's okay to be ever changing. It's okay to be a new version of you. But the choice, I guess, is yours, to how much you grow into that, and how that version of you will look, and to yourself, more importantly. You said earlier, internally rather than externally. And how you feel about that version of you is down to you and what you do from now, you know. And I think that's that a lot of people get kind of, from my experience, a bit apprehensive about that, but
Hmm.
it's extremely exciting thing, you know. I mean,
It's so exciting.
yeah, I mean, imagine just, I mean, it's true, but the sky being the limit. Like, you know, who knows where you can be next year, if you know, providing we get there. Who knows where you can be in 5 days' time? You know, that can be either exciting or it can be scary, and
It's
that
probably
choice.
it's probably both. This is the thing. We're like, you know, something we're probably guilty of at the moment is we preclude the future straight away. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, shit, I can't do that. That's too scary. Well, because we think that against the subconscious going, shit, I don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to go there. Our needs are being met at the moment, mate. We don't want to rock the boat or anything. And also, we get taken in by the idea that progress is meant to be like this.
Yeah,
That every day we just constantly go up like that. Sorry, it doesn't happen like that. And this again quotes you have saying that if you can be 1% better than yesterday, if you held that true, that means in 100 days you'll be perfect, right? If you improve 1% every day, it will take you 100 days by definition to just then be fine. Mm, I would say if you then came with the idea that actually your progress would be literally be like a roller coaster or a cardiogram. A cardiogram when it's normal just beeps up and down. What you don't want to do is go flat and have neutral progress because then you're dead. A flat line on a ECG means you're dead. So there's the idea that like we don't always have to be going in an upward direction. You're really literally going to be like that. So if we can build that sense of, yeah, you said before, we'll have sometimes good days, we'll have not so good days. It's all built into the work that we do. We're not saying you're going to hit this no problem. And as you said, like the excitement comes from what could happen in whatever time frame you put it. Again, we don't need to lock ourselves into a time frame. I need to get better by a month. I need to get better in a year. Like, well, why not just say, no, I'll just look to work on myself. That's it. And then that's as you said, you open your possibilities up. That's exactly what we're hinting at here. Because as I say, you could be looking for a massive change in your life, like a goal or whatever, or it could be something micro managed, or sorry, a tiny thing. Like I just want to get into less arguments or just feel calmer. There's no big massive goal at the end of it. It's just those kind of goals, you know, or wants. But it's all possible with what
yeah,
we offer. That's the power of mindset.
for sure, mate. I think that's a fantastic point there, and the title of this live as well, the power of mindset. So, I mean, yeah, of course. Like I think it's goals within goals, isn't it? You know, you might have this goal of what you want to achieve, but the places you can get to in pursuit of that, I mean, you may never get to that end goal. To be fair, you know, if there's a good chance you never make it. And I've seen people, you know, famous people I know,
Yep.
set
Mm-hmm.
really high goals, and they realize they're not going to get there. And you can see the you know the downside to it, the sad feelings, the depressive thoughts, all that kind of stuff. I didn't make it, but it's like, if you were to ask that person, you know, look at everything you did in between. Without that main goal that you had at the end, would you have bridged the gap as far as you would have if you didn't have that goal at all, if it never came into your mind, and therefore the regret of never getting there would never come into your mind? Would you have got close? You know, and I think that's what a lot of people kind of forget when they're setting goals, is that there's all of this room in between where you are now to where you want to be.
Mm.
And that doesn't have to be seen as hard work only on its own. That can be seen as ticking off on a list of things that I've achieved by having this end goal, you know. And I think that's why maybe a lot of people don't make it, is because there isn't that process in between. But the ones that do take that process, they will feel more value when they actually achieve those mini goals to their main goal. And I think that's something that, like, I think it'd be great for everyone to sort of take on board, because we're going to have goals in our life we're probably not going to achieve. You know,
Yeah.
very few people go through whole lives where they achieve absolutely every dream they ever had, you know. So I think to it should not stop you from having them. I think to have those goals in the first place is one thing. You might not get there, but the things you can do between now and then will be more. It'll be more. There'll be more success
Yeah.
involved in between that end goal.
And it's what we mentioned before, that we don't have to hang our self-worth on these goals. This is the little bit of a trap that we're falling in at the moment, that if I get that goal, as we said before, that's what will make me happy. Then we don't get it, or we get it and like, was that it? And you go for another one. It's what we said, the work that we do lets you achieve goals as a byproduct. We don't have to list them, go, right, that's exactly what that's what I'll work towards, and that's it. We have the flexibility to change our minds, change goals, whatever. And so we're not demonizing goals. We're not saying they're useless, but we don't have to fixate on them. There's very much this thing at the moment where once you said something, right, that's it, you got to stick to it. Well, how about we introduce flexibility then? Understand that, okay, well, why do we want the goal? We might have blindly said something because somebody else said do that. Okay? Why do you want it? It might turn out the thing you want is actually the thing you don't really want. And that's okay. We don't have to kid ourselves. If we don't want something, it's okay. So at the moment we're not in the habit of saying I don't really want that, because again, it's what we said before, it's not the emotion, it's what we feel about the emotion. We feel if we're indecisive, it's like, oh shit, you know, that's no good. But really, well, we're all indecisive, we're all flawed, and that's okay. When we get more comfortable with that, again, it doesn't give us a license to just be reckless and just not give monkeys about anything, but it's given us the space, the compassion to practice more of what we then do want and work towards that. And again, it doesn't have to be what I explicitly say something and that's what I want, because then some people said that's how the universe works. Say what you want and then they'll move it. Yeah, nice ideology, and it can work. Like when I think about my own coaching journey or whatever, you know, opportunities like today, meeting you, another great coach, was probably the universe putting together. You know, he had the idea of let's share the space. We share this same space in terms of like the Insta group and whatever, and we spoke, and here we are. We're giving a great session about it. And you know, that's something that I didn't have that explicit goal saying I have to talk to XYZ. The opportunities come along, and we're not just going to say, look, it's all going to magically work by just talking about a goal and manifesting or speaking to the universe. It just means that those things are still possible when we give ourselves the opportunity. We don't have to just, you know, buy a bunch of crystals and all this kind of thing, which again, if it works for people, that's all good. We're not saying that's, you know, no good here, but it's just about possibilities, and that's what the true power of mindset, I think, is. I'm just conscious of time. You know, time flies when you're having fun. I just wonder if you had the last few words about it, you know, the idea of the power of mindset before we close up.
Yeah, I think just on top of what we've kind of said already, mate, to be honest, I think just that the idea that everything has to be perfect, the idea that everything has to go perfectly, you know, when you introduce yourself to mindset and start to learn more about it, you can you realize very quickly that it absolutely does not have to be like that, and it won't be. But that's a good thing, you know, because the learning that you can do when you work on your mindset, the version of yourself that you can become, because let's be real, it's not about everything that you have to do. You know, we get caught up in thinking, okay, I have to do this to achieve X, Y, Z. You know, to get in shape, I have to do this. To get a better relationship, I have to do this. To start a business, I have to do this. To get a promotion, I have to do this. You know, it's not so much about that. It's about who can you become, like what version of you can you become to reach those things, you know. And that's where mindset comes into place, because you can be, it's not about becoming someone else, it's about becoming you, but that version of you that's gonna achieve those things, you know, where you are
Brilliant.
writing down your challenges, and you know, and you're not perfect, and you know that, but you're trying, and that's what matters, you know. That's kind of the message I wanted to get across. I think just not so much on what you have to do, but thinking about who you can become to reach where you want to get to.
Brilliant. No better way than to end it. As you said, it's the idea of becoming the best version of you, not getting, you know, held to ransom by goals, etc. You know, you can't say any better than that. You know, so you have the answers. The likes of Alex and I are ready to help you to find them. And yeah, look, I think that's a great place to end the session there. But look, thanks so much, Alex, for coming along and having this great session. Look, if anyone's listening, look, thanks again to everyone that's joined. If you've got any further questions, ideas, thoughts, etc., you can reach out to Alex. Alex, what's your Insta handle? I'm sure people know already.
Alex Watts 10, and you can get to my website via that as well. So
perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm at Inner Peace Walker, and that's innerpeacewalker.com as well. Would love to reach out and talk more with you guys on whatever it is mindset related. But for now, thanks so much for listening, and catch you all next time.
Legend, mate.
Nice one.